Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more home defense testing, and today we've got a very interesting combination to try out. We've tested other versions of this shell before and they're usually some very nice performers, so I don't expect any different from these as well. And to be honest with you, these might be one of the better options for a home defense scenario. If they pattern like I think they will and the recoil is what I think it might be as well, these might be one of the perfect options. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what we can get from them. But for the shells we've got today, I brought out some of these. The Hornady American Gunner buckshot loads. These ones are a 12 gauge, 2 3/4 inch, 8 pellet load of double aught buck at 1,350 feet per second, and they are a reduced recoil shell as well. Now, what isn't advertised anywhere on this box, and even on the website, I think it's kind of vague if I'm remembering correctly, but these do indeed have the Hornady Versatite wad, which is essentially Hornady's rip-off copy of the Federal Flight Control, and it legitimately works. So with these being an 8 pellet load of double aught buck with the Versatite wad and the reduced recoil as well at a little bit lower velocity than something like the Hornady Black at 1600, these most certainly have the potential to throw some very nice patterns, but also be very nice to shoot as well. And price wise, I think they might be a touch cheaper than the Hornady Critical Defense or the Hornady Black as well, if I'm remembering correctly. So these might just be one of the more perfect home defense shells. But for the setup we're running them through, I brought out the Remington 870 special purpose. It's got an 18.5-inch cylinder bore barrel, so no choke at all. Nice, short, compact, handy setup for a defensive oriented scenario, and it's about as common as you can really get. Classic 870. We've seen some great results from this exact shotgun with the other versions of the Hornady shells, like the Critical Defense and the Hornady Black, so I expect to see that same kind of performance from these as well. But for our test today, we're running it the same as we usually do. I got a bunch of pretty roughly spray painted silhouettes downrange here. The spray paint can didn't want to work in 38-degree weather this morning, so my art skills aren't anything impressive, but it'll get the point across. But we're gonna shoot 5 shots ranging from 7 to 25 yards, so 7, 10, 15, 20, and 25. That's going to give us a good reference point from everything from the same room all the way down the hall, out across the living room, out to the porch, or even out to a shed or something like that, if for whatever reason you're in that scenario and decide that you need to take that shot. At that kind of range, it's up to you to determine whether you should or shouldn't, but we at least need to see, do we have a clear range limitation with this combo? And that should tell us. And of course, all of them will be shot through the chronograph as well. So let's get you guys to view those targets. We'll take some shots and see if my high expectations are actually met with these. Okay, so for our chronograph numbers real quick before we look at our target, we had a boss claim of 1350. We weren't quite seeing that, but we do have an 18.5-inch barrel. Most likely they tested them through at least a 20 or potentially a little longer than that, but we weren't far off. We had 1304, 1288, 1314, 1303, and 1273 for an average at 1296, so 54 feet per second below the boss claim. That's definitely a couple inches worth of barrel length, so that does make sense. But right at 1300 for a double aught buck load is more than good enough for a home defense scenario. And yes, these were very pleasant to shoot. They were definitely low recoil shells, very manageable, so I can confirm that claim is true. Very nice to shoot overall. But how did they pattern? I think we saw some pretty good looking results, so let's go take a look. Alright, so now we get to look at our pretty impressive results, and I'd say they kind of lived up to what I thought they would. Seems like Hornady shells loaded like this are always very good performers. They have the Versatite wad, they're not any kind of special plated pellet, and they're not buffered, but that wad does a number, as well as having 8 pellets. That seems to really dial them in as well and prevent some of the flyers. We're starting over here at 7 and 10 yards. Over here on the right with our 7-yard pattern, we see a 2-inch 3-inch spread of pellets with the wad still stuck in the paper there as well. So that is a very nice tight clump of them. Center mass, that's going to be devastating. Moving over to 10 yards, we opened it up a little bit to 4.5 inches with a wad strike at the bottom, but you can see how much farther separated the wad is from the shot right there. That's a pretty good comparison. I bet if we shot these at 5, a lot of the pellets would probably still be in the wad. So easily within the same room, this is very devastating, no doubt about it. This is exactly what I expected to see from these shells. Sub 5 inches out to 10 yards all day long. Very manageable recoil. That's a nice performance combination right there. I would not hesitate to use that in my home defense shotgun. But moving over here to 15 yards, from here on is kind of a special case scenario where you may have to decide whether you should or shouldn't take the shot. But if you needed to, we still kept a very nice condensed spread of them there. 7.5 inches with a wad strike still as well. I favored a touch to the right, but it clearly did not make any kind of a difference here. That spray painted intruder might be a little bit ugly shaped, but it definitely took him down, that's for sure. But now moving over to 20 yards, we still kept pretty much an identical spread. 7.25 inches, which is technically a 1/4 inch tighter than our 15-yard spread, but still very nice, very even, condensed area of pellets. Just a great performance all day long, that's for sure. So whether or not you're put in a one-off type scenario and have to take a defensive shot this far, or potentially looking at a deer hunting scenario or something, starting to get 20 yards and beyond, clearly it's going to do the job just fine for you out there as well. And that trend continues all the way out at 25 yards as well. This pattern is a little bit funnier shaped. The farthest 2 points across are 10.5 inches. So going from 7.25 to 10.5 between 20 and 25. That does make sense, but we have a nice little hot clump of pellets down there. That's 3.25 inches for those other 6 pellets. But still, I might have favored a touch low and a touch to the right, but it would absolutely be devastating, no doubt about it. Maybe you can consider 1 or 2 of those flyers, but if you measure the size of the pattern, it makes sense. So I think it's more likely that we just so happen to get lucky with a nice tight clump of pellets in the middle, rather than actually throwing any legitimate flyers. So still, all the way out to 25 yards, very capable of anything you'd want to use a double-aught buck pellet for, that's for sure. So overall, this is exactly what I was expecting to see. I was hoping it would perform this way, and it clearly did. All the way out at longer ranges, down to in the same room. I mean, to start off with, at point blank range, you're getting down there into golf ball size pattern territory. So that is gonna be devastating for sure. I would not hesitate to run these in a home defense scenario. They are a reduced recoil shell for sure, just like they claim they were, but they still have a little more velocity than a lot of other low recoil options do, being that 1350 claim, and we're getting right about 1300. Typically a lot of managed recoil or reduced recoil shells are down in the 1000 to 1100 range, so that's a factor here as well. Overall, these might be one of the best options out there for a home defense shell. You kind of check all the boxes. Tight pattern, keeps it nice and even. It's reduced recoil, so it's not going to be hard to handle at all in crunch time, but you've still got good velocity and are carrying good energy, and clearly your pattern capability is just fine. So that kind of checks all the boxes. That might be about the perfect home defense type of load for somebody that likes those nice tight condensed spreads. Some people may prefer a little more spread at close ranges, but for me, that might be just about right. So very nice performance overall here today, no doubt about it. And I didn't expect any less out of them. And here are a few of those wads. You can tell that some of them actually hit the target paper pretty good, but this one right here is a very good example. It looks just like a Federal Flight Control, because pretty much it is, to be honest with you. But this is Hornady's Versatite wad. Acts the same as a Federal Flight Control and performs just like it as well. No damage, nothing stuck down in there. Everything looks perfectly normal here, and clearly you can tell they perform very nicely on the paper. So nothing out of the ordinary to look at here. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that performance right there? At this point, I think we pretty well covered it. That might just be kind of the ideal home defense oriented shell. I just listed all the check boxes of stuff and it goes through and kind of checks them all. The pattern, the recoil, the velocity, the performance overall. I obviously would not hesitate to take that and put it in my home defense shotgun any day of the week. I kind of do like that little extra velocity that those have with the managed recoil aspect of them as well. A lot of people overlook 8 pellet double-aught because it's not 9 or it's not 12 or it's not 15. Well, here's the deal. I don't want to be standing in front of a single pellet of double-aught, and I don't think you do either. And 8 pellets is more than enough. And usually they pattern a little more consistently as well than a 9 pellet does. So what is there not to like about these, to be honest with you? They cover all the bases, that's for sure. Sure, they're not quite as cheap as a basic, just cheap import shell that you would take and run 100 of on the range in a day. But if I'm putting something in a defense shotgun, I want to be able to trust it with my life, and I think these shells are going to do that job just fine. So let me know what you think about it down in the comments. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of these Hornady American Gunner double-aught loads? And if so, what kind of results have you seen? Is this a combo you would run as a home defense option? Or do you still prefer one shell over another? Maybe you want a little bit broader of a spread than what that gives you? That's a viable opinion as well, for sure. Or is this about the perfect combo for you because you've got similar check boxes to what I've got? Let me know all that down below. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, you have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.